There are some people in your life that may pull you away from Christ, but there are some that push us towards Jesus, and those are the type of friends that we want to keep in our life. But for some reason in our life, there are some of you, maybe some of me, that we are drawn to toxic people. Some of you just love drama. And if there's no drama, you will stir up drama so that you can have that drama in your life. And so that's what we want to talk about tonight. We want to talk about how you can love other people and how you can have friends without becoming toxic or without having those friends that are toxic in your life. All right? So who are the wrong people? Here's some qualities to look for. Now, I'm not saying that if you have one of these qualities, or maybe one of these qualities just happens to surface once or twice, it doesn't mean that you're doomed, right? You're not going to have any friends. It's just a pattern, all right? So here's some toxic, all right? 1 Corinthians 15:33, all right? This is what it says. It says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals." Don't be deceived. For some reason, we think that other people can't influence us. Sometimes we think music can't influence us. And all those things are not necessarily true. Things do influence us. The people that we hang around with have an influence in our life. So who are the wrong people? Number one, there's 3 categories. The first is this: critics. They're critics. There are those people in your life that you can do no right. Like, it's just everything you do is wrong. They're critical of everything that you do. I remember growing up, my dad always talked about how I did not pull my pants up to here. Now I'm a big guy, and so my pants don't go up to here. They just have to stay here. But when I was skinny, he wanted me to wear them up here. It's weird, right? And so he wanted to know why my clothes are always baggy. It's just, Dad, this is the way I like my clothes. Maybe there's those people in your life that are just critical. They're your friends that you hang around with, and you just never measure up. They just make you feel like, I'm not good enough. They're just critical of you. The next one are the controllers. People that will control you. And you know who they are. If you suggest something, they will always manipulate you to do what they want to do. Some of you may be thinking of a name, right? That you get manipulated to do whatever it is they want to do. Whatever you think, they try to fix it where they get their way. The next one is the Tempters. And this one's pretty easy. It's this idea that they try to get you to do what you know you shouldn't do. And I'll be honest, none of us wake up in the morning and just think, today, I'm going to try to get someone to do something that they don't want to do. It's not the way that we work. But there are these people in your life that you know that what you're about to do is wrong. And they convince you for you to rationalize it. So the question is, how do you manage the relationships that you have if you've got people that are critical, that are controllers, that are tempters? So maybe some of you are thinking, I don't have any of these people in my life. Make sure you look inward to make sure you are not the person, right? But most of the time, how do we manage these toxic relationships? So here's the thing, students. Jesus created some boundaries for us because it's really hard to love people that may not be healthy. The toxic may rub off on you. And what I mean by that is if they're critical, if they're controlling, if they're tempting, if you're hanging out with them, what the Bible tells us, don't be misled. Good company corrupts bad company corrupts good character. So what happens is it rubs off on you. And you start to drift in that way. All right? So here's what Jesus did. In Matthew 16, 21 through 23, he set some boundaries. This is his first boundary. Matthew 16, 21 through 23. This is what it says. From the time Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you." But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan, you are a hindrance." So what happens here is Jesus is saying, hey, this is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And Peter comes up to him and says, hey, we're not going to let this happen. And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." Now, I don't recommend you doing this to your grandma or your grandpa, when they tell you to pull your pants up or whatever it is they tell you to do, right? Just get behind me, Satan, right? Don't do that. But here's the principle behind all of this. Jesus knew exactly what he was called to do. He knew. And so he knew what he was supposed to do, and nothing was going to be able to sway him from that. The next boundaries that Jesus set is 2 Corinthians 6:14. And I think it's on the screen. All right? Don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers, for what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? And most of the time you hear this when you start dating someone. Don't date someone that doesn't believe in Jesus. Totally true. But here's the other principle. I think when it comes to your best friends, you need to be on the same path. And here's what I mean by that. Come on up. All right. I need one more guy. You in the blue, come up here. Yeah. This'll work. Yeah. You're going to pump some iron. All right. So here's the deal. So the Bible tells us, don't be unequally yoked. Guys, I'm going to teach you a really great principle. All right?
Yes.
Caleb?
Yeah.
You pick up that end. I want you to pick up this end. Now, here's the thing. I want you to pick it over your head. Okay? There we go. So, okay. Yeah. So the Bible tells us don't be unequally yoked. All right. Who do you think has the most weight? Why?
I got you.
Theoretically, who has the most weight?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, weight on the pole. What's your name? Brennan. Brennan does. Like, you can already tell it in his voice. He's like, Brennan. See, so what happens is this is the idea of don't be unequally yoked. See, if Caleb is standing here and he's unequally yoked, it's easy for him. But if you're hanging out with someone that's not necessarily where you're at in the spiritual walk, there's a lot of pressure on you because you've got all the weight. So if Brennan's here and he's a follower of Christ and he's hanging out with someone that's not, he's got a lot of pressure on him because he's got all the weight. Students, if you're hanging out with someone and they're your best friend and they don't have the same beliefs, and that's where you're spending all your time. You guys can put it down. Thanks. Thank you. Very good. All right. Good job. So what happens is the weight is always heavier. And sometimes you think, hey, it's not that big of a deal. But it is that big of a deal. Because what happens is, I know a lot of you, when you start dating for a high school student, if you don't have the same ideas I'll give you an example. I have a friend that she was dating, and she was dating someone that was Church of Christ. He was a great follower of Jesus. But what happens is the Church of Christ, she loves music, like drums and pianos. The Church of Christ, some churches, they don't necessarily believe in instruments. Like it's just like a piano. That's it. And so what happens is, in her head, she thought it was okay, but the longer the relationship went on, she realized, if I marry this guy and we have kids, what church are we going to go to? Like, it's going to create problems down the road. And so some of you may be thinking, well, we're just dating, but you're creating habits. You're creating habits that will last a lifetime. And if you make this compromise once, you may make it again and again and again. And so the reason why the Bible tells us don't be unequally yoked is because you're not going in the same direction. You'll just go in circles. So if you look at Genesis 39:12, it's a popular story with Joseph and Potiphar's wife. And so what happens in this verse is Joseph is in this room and he's doing something, and Potiphar's wife comes in, and I don't know. All I know is Potiphar liked Joseph. All right? She wanted Joseph, and she already had a husband. So this is what happens. She caught him by his garment saying, "Lie with me," in a biblical sense, right? But he left his garment in her hand, and he fled, and he got out of the house. Students, really important. Joseph didn't say, well, let me pray about it. Let me think about what you're proposing, and let me just pray through it. He simply just ran. And so what happens is, most of the time, we think we can just pray about it and we can postpone whatever decision is that we have to make. Well, just let me pray about it. Joseph didn't need to pray about it. He knew exactly what he needed to do, and he ran. So I'll sum it up with this. When you start talking about the friends that you have, the friend that you are, do your friends push you towards Jesus or away from Jesus? I'm not talking about acquaintances. I'm talking about those that are in your circle, that you spend the most time with. Do they push you towards Jesus or do they push you away from Jesus? Do you look more like the world or do you look more like a follower of Jesus? So parents, I know there's a lot of parents in the room, a lot of small group leaders. You have this opportunity to influence your kids in a great way. And it sounds crazy, but by making your house the place where kids want to hang out, because you have a chance to influence them. You can control where they hang out and what they're doing if they come over to your place. Now, I don't know what that looks like for you, but I know that as Shane gets older, I want kids to be able to come over to the house and hang out. Not right now because they're 8-year-olds. You got to watch them, right? As they get older, right? So adults, I don't know what that looks like for you, but you have an opportunity to have a place where kids want to hang out. And that way you can kind of monitor those things and you can have a positive influence in their life. So some of you guys are here and you have a friend that is just toxic and you know it, and they're weighing you down. Maybe they're the reason why you're constantly in trouble. The hardest thing for you to do is to kind of separate yourself from that friend. Because friends are the hardest thing that you'll have to deal with. So as we talk about all these things over the last few weeks about this detoxing our soul from these things, this is the hardest thing you'll ever have to do, is choosing the right friends. Because they make a huge influence in your life. You will make decisions based on your friends sometimes, and they could be the right decision or wrong decision. So here's what I want to challenge you guys with. There's no small groups tonight, but next week we'll have small groups. And here's the question I want to leave you with. do your friends push you towards Jesus or away from Jesus? And the $1 million question is this: how? Like, it's easy to say towards or away, but specific examples of how they're influencing you is what I would love for you to share in your small groups next week. So here's the deal. Let me pray, and then I'll give you some instructions on silent disco, okay? Father, thank you for the opportunity that we have to gather together and for you give us friends. Father, I pray for healthy friendships across this room, that you would help us to choose friends that are positive, that are encouraging, that push us towards you. Father, we pray all these things in your name. Amen.